If you could place any object on the surface of Mars, purely to confuse NASA scientists, what would it be? Taking notes. Soviet-era space suit with a skeleton. With the name tag Rasputin. Or possibly Hoffa. D. B. Cooper. It would say Dan Cooper since that's what he actually went by. D.B. Cooper was a reporting error. Fun trivia. I'm sure NASA would know this, is the only reason I bring it up. A fully crewed, by preserved corpse skeletons of course, Viking longship. We're whalers on the moon. We carry a harpoon. But there ain't no whales, so we tell tall tales and sing our whaling tune. I love unexpected Futurama. A big map of Earth with several points of interest marked on it. And an extra continent, with a big X through it. Atlantis. Smack bang in the southern Pacific, and it turns out all the Pacific Islands are actually the bits sticking above the surface. I'm a geologist, and I can confirm that just placing the wrong type of rock would duck up science for like 30 years. I often pick up rocks that I know only occur in specific areas and leave them somewhere that would be naturally impossible in the hope that it will break a geochemist's mind when they find it. Haha. I work at an airport and we have to collect samples of bird strikes on aircraft to send in for identification and tracking to the Smithsonian Ornithology Department. I really want to acquire some emperor penguin feathers for submission just to see what would happen. For reference, I live in the Northeast. I'm 80% sure that a zoo would be willing to give you some spare penguin feathers if you ask. There's always a bunch lying around. Especially if he explains why. I want to give this guy penguin feathers and I've never touched one. Me too. Maybe we could recruit someone from that funny thread about petting penguins? That S design we all drew in middle school. Core memories unlocked, thanks, I'm gonna go draw it now. Sleeper agent activated. Leaper gent. Liquid water in a mason jar. Scientists have found evidence of a 2012 barn wedding on Mars. A monolith with a QR code to scan and rickroll. A page from a Martian newspaper, pondering the possibility that there might be life on Earth. The turns have tabled. A white plastic lawn chair. With a slight chip in one of the legs so they'd be scared to sit down. Except they could sit down, because the gravity of Mars is much less than Earth's. Which means we should send all of our chipped lawn chairs to Mars so that they will become functional again. That makes sense, they're still perfectly usable in the right scenario. I guess OP just didn't understand the gravity of the situation. Statue of Liberty half buried in the ground. You maniac. Damn you all to hell. Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape. The missing pieces of the Rosetta Stone. Complete with a fourth as yet unknown language. Or just wingdings. That would do it well. An exact copy of the Mars rover, or whatever they used to discover it. That's actually a great premise for a sci-fi horror movie. The rover rolls up to the Mars base and they're about to let it in when they glance at the monitor and realize the real rover is a mile away. Beep boop, the doppelganger says time to collect samples. Watch the movie Moon, 2009, sometime if you haven't yet. Even if you've watched it already. A whole Dollar General. Dollar Generals exist in the most random rural places already that I'd be like, okay, this makes sense. Usually in groups of 2 or 3 in towns with a population of 382. A picnic basket, blanket, food laid out with a note, honey, I forgot the potato salad, I'll be back in 20 minutes, and for good measure, a 1953 Buick. To complete the scene, footprints that walk away and just disappear about 50 yards away. I want to read that story, Mr. Bradbury. It does read like a Bradbury story. I'm gonna have to go read The Illustrated Man again. Matt Damon. Dinosaur remains holding a Bible. I mean, of course, a Mars bar wrapper. Like a giant one covering the entire planet under a slight layer of dirt and dust, or just the one regular size thing. Regular size would be funny. Imagine when it would leak and it would get on the news. Singular Mars bar found on Mars. Simple, velociraptor skeletons in a space shuttle. One of them holding a Bible, so a velocipaster. Another wearing giant gold chains, a clock medallion and an Adidas tracksuit. A velociraptor. An Egyptian obelisk, inscribed with mathematics relating to something like a spatial fold engine or warp drive. You could confuse the scientists by developing mathematics related to a spatial fold engine or warp drive. I could. But unfortunately am not great at the tensor calculus required yet. Just ask ChatGPT to do it for you in TensorFlow. GPT-4 writes some plausible-looking TensorFlow code to describe a space-folding warp engine. Import TensorFlow as TF. Import NumPy as NP. Hash constants for the warp engine. Lightspeed 299,792,458. Hash ms. Warp factor 9.0. Warp speed. Warp factor. Lightspeed. Def space folding activation x. Return tf.math.cinch x. tf.math.cosh x plus 1 e minus 7. Def warp field matrix space folding factor. Warp matrix tf.constant 1.0, 0.0, 0.0, space folding factor, 0.0, 1.0, 0.0, 0.0, 0.0, 0.0, 1.0, 0.0, space folding factor, 0.0, 0.0, 1.0, dtype f.float 32, return warp matrix def warp engine space coordinates, warp factor. Space folding factor. Space folding activation. Warp factor. Warp matrix. Warp field matrix. Space folding factor. Warp heat coordinates. df.linealg.matmul space coordinates. Warp matrix. Return warp heat coordinates. Hash define the input tensor for space coordinates x, y, z, 1, space coordinates. df.constant 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, 1.0, dtype f.float 32. Hash calculate the warped coordinates using the warp engine. Warp heat coordinates. Warp engine space coordinates. Warp factor. Print initial space coordinates. Space coordinates. Print warped coordinates. Warp heat coordinates. Now teleport? The skeleton of Hitler. I've had it for decades. Why stop there? Leave a fully functional Nazi base in a random cave. Wacky inflatable tube man on the highest peak. Hi, I'm Al Harrington from Al Harrington's Wacky Waving Inflatable Flailing Arm Tube Man Incorporation, here to let you know we have an overstock of wacky waving inflatable flailing arm tube mans and need to clear them out now, and passing the savings on to you. A bad dragon dildo. There it is. Right where you left it. Lying upside down. The fossilized remains of non-human biped with a sign that says no more nuclear testing. Non-human biped a chicken? Only if it's plucked. Well, if it's plucked then it's not non-human. A hat t-shirt reading 1992 Super Bowl champion Buffalo Bills. Man, I knew they shipped those things far off to less developed areas, but I had no idea they were going to those lengths. A partially vaporized radioactive manhole cover. Ada, thanks kind internet strangers for the awards. I like to think that thing is still screaming at the space to this day, further than any of our other probes even went. I like to think that is our civilization's greatest yeet. Monoliths describing how Karen is actually a big inner space gate or something. Then watch happily as the globe panics, then sets up expeditions for Karen, only to find nothing there. Or something. It's okay, you can just call it a mass relay. $200,000, a parachute, and the body of D.B. Cooper. Pieces of flight MH370. Need I say more? Maybe the feet of one of these things just sticking out of the dirt. Flat Earth Society logo. Flat Mars Society. A pyramid combining all the different appearances of the different pyramids on Earth. Filled with booby traps and xenomorphs? A small sign saying caution, uneven surface. One of the 28,000 rubber ducks that got spilled in the Atlantic back in 1992. NPR.org edit, clean link. A NASA spacecraft, one that NASA has no record of. Like something they've never built, but that has NASA logos all over it and clearly has a NASA origin, just not our NASA.